The reality we live in can be a very strange place. Most of the time, fact being stranger than fiction. How will we ever start to understand this reality we live in unless we question everything? Join me and a guest as we unravel the mysteries of this reality, one topic at a time. This is Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Jones.
What is up, Inquirers, and welcome to the expanse of deep open-minded conversation. I'm the one they call Shane, and today for you guys, I have James Price, founder of Plunder World Trading Cards, here today to share his journey into what some may call conspiracies, but through fact-based research and note-taking, inevitably led into collectible cards to pass the information to the general public. But before we get into this episode today, just a couple of quick news and updates. First and foremost, if anyone would like to catch the next live episode of Bizarre Inquiries, you guys will be able to catch that September 4th at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over there on the OMM YouTube and Twitch channels. And there will be more information on that posted as we get a little bit closer. And I'm not going to keep beating this one like a dead horse, but the t-shirt giveaway / survey is still going on. If anybody's interested in checking that out and possibly winning a free t-shirt off of the store, there is a link available down in the show description so you guys can go and find your way to that survey. And if you guys appreciate all of the hard effort that goes into the show and trying to entertain you guys every week, there's a handful of different ways that you guys could support the show. First and foremost, if you guys aren't already following the show on Instagram or Facebook, I would definitely appreciate it if you did. You guys can also go and check out the OMM Patreon with 2 tiers available, ad-free / early access and full access. Try to make it a little bit more simple, so only 2 tiers. There's not a bunch of them anymore. And you guys can also go and check out the OMM merch store with t-shirts starting at just $15.68 plus shipping. You guys could even leave a review for the show, which I could read on the show and give you guys a big shout out. You guys could share the show with anybody that you think might be interested in exploring any of the topics that we talk about on the show. You guys can also go and catch the live episodes of the show and Bizarre Encounters over there on the OMM YouTube and Twitch channels. You guys could even donate to the show directly if you guys really appreciate it. Get me a monster or something to drink to keep me up through the night so I can keep editing these episodes for you guys. You guys could also go and check out the affiliate links. There's some additional discounts and credits available down there for you guys that you guys could go and check out. And the last way you guys could support all the hard work I put in over here is by going and checking out my other show too, of course, Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin. A little bit of a different format where we deep dive into a bunch of weird stuff over there, but there's been a lot of really good episodes lately, so if you guys have been enjoying this show, I definitely think you guys will go and enjoy that show. And everything that I mentioned is all available off of the link tree, which is available down in that show description. And before we get into the show, if anyone is interested in being a guest on the show, sharing their experiences or encounters, or in contacting me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can do so through email, which is inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or you guys could call or text the OMM hotline. That number is 313-364-1551. You guys can call or text that 24/7, make it a little bit easier for you guys. And with that, let's get into the show. Please welcome to the show, James Price from Plunder World. How's it going today, man?
I turned my volume all the way down. You got me. Just going pretty well. Thanks for having me on the show.
Actually, the volume didn't turn down at all on my end, so maybe it turned down in your headphones, but you were good on my end. I could hear you the whole time.
Okay, all right.
So I guess a good spot to start for anybody that may not be familiar with what Plunder World is exactly. And if it wasn't for you hitting me up on social media, I might not be familiar with what it is, but the concept is definitely cool. So for anybody that, again, may not know who exactly you are and what Plunder World is exactly, why don't you fill them in a little bit?
Plunder World is a set of trading cards I always wanted my entire life. I grew up reading all of the books. I had one of those amazing crazy fathers and a group of uncles that would talk till like 4 a.m. on Thanksgiving nights. And I would just peek around the corner and just hope I could understand what they were saying. And so I've read these books. I've listened to shows. I've studied. And the biggest thing that always stuck out to me is that when I read something, I'll highlight it and I'll close the book and forget it. And so I thought it'd be kind of a great way to make a reminder, some sort of collectible reminder that maybe could introduce young people to these kind of topics. I mean, I'm a homeschool dad, and history is always the hardest subject to teach. And so years ago, I got my son these books called the Tuttle Twins. And if anybody's never heard of the Tuttle Twins, get them. They're fantastic. They're like Curious George style books about a brother and a sister, and they're learning all of these voluntarist principles, like how to make money without the government knowing about it, or how to, voluntarily, fix something in your neighborhood using the skills that your father can teach you. And I thought these are great, because there's not enough media for young folks, especially leaving high school, because you form a group of friends and you bond over video games and toys, and then you become an adult. And you start holding on to that crap until you're 50 and 60, till what? I mean, you don't really mature. You hold on to those things and you're infantilized. And that's on purpose. And we can get to that later. But I want to give kids like a cool, almost like, subversive way to learn some of these topics and introduce them to the people, the places, and the technology responsible for the terrible state of the world today. And that's what Plunder World is.
Well, I can definitely say that I could stand behind and appreciate that, because that's one of those things that it's really, really hard to talk about some of these topics with younger kids. And this is one of those things that I'm always mentioning too, is that it's like you don't want them to get indoctrinated into this system, and then it's too hard to break that programming back. And being, again, another dad who, schools my kids at home also, it's definitely one of those things that I try to keep them away from that like mainstream narrative, but you still see it with a lot of different things. And it's like you want to try to expose them to these ideas without trying to make it like taboo to them, to possibly, not need to live off the government, to not need to do this, to be able to sustain things for yourself, to be able to, seem like it's cool that, you know how to tend chickens or take care of vegetables and take care of stuff in your garden and stuff, or even just conspiracy topics as a whole, though, because it's kind of like a hard back and forth where it's like, you kind of want them to understand the concept before you maybe introduce them fully to like, not just for a prime example, like the moon landing concept, like before, you introduce that concept, it's probably best that they just learn about the moon landing. And then once they are like, all right, the moon landing, then you can start being like, all right, here's some weird little things to point out. But again, it's a matter of sparking that interest. And, if you have a card game, whatever, not even a game, but collectible cards, kind of like the old school top cards, it's just a good way to kind of like spark up the conversation. And I mean, even amongst adults and stuff like that, man, you bring out a card, somebody sees it and somebody doesn't know about that conspiracy, and it just opens up a new chain of conversation. It
happens all the time. I mean, from an early age, my dad was into a set of cards called True Crime. And each card profiled like a gangster or a serial killer. And he was always after the ultra rare hologram of the electric chair. And one day he finally got it. And it's like, it was really amazing. And the artwork was so haunting and weird and strange. And then there was another self-contained set of cards called Coup d'etat. And it was about 50 cards that detailed the assassination of JFK. And so I'd take these to school. And I'm showing my friends, I'm like, oh, check this crap out. Wow, this is neat. And I mean, I just get the wild stares, like, whoa, we'd never seen this before. But they couldn't stop looking at them. And it always stuck in my mind, because you look at some baseball cards, and who cares, Garbage Pail Kids, yeah, whatever. But these people paid attention to these. And then I never got into gaming cards. It just wasn't my scene. But there was a series of cards, I'm sure you're familiar with them, the INWO Steve Jackson game.
Yeah, I believe so.
The Illuminati card game.
Yeah.
And, yep. So a couple of my friends got into that, and I saw them, and I went, holy smokes, this is kind of like the stuff that I'm familiar with.
People are still using that today because they're still lining up with the current events that are weirdly happening. Like, I know the last one that popped up was, when Trump was getting elected, there was a bunch of cards that are coming out. The assassination thing where it's the, we can get you anywhere you stand with the guy that had the shot on the ear. Like, it's crazy that those cards were created in the 90s and they're still lining up with current events and there's still more to come.
Well, I don't know if it was an urban legend, but I seem to recall that Steve Jackson Games in Austin was actually raided by the FBI. And they were asking him all kinds of questions, but that's the only tidbit I know about that. I never cared for the card game concept. I never cared for the fact that the back of every card was wasted because it's just the logo. I understand that for the sake of the card game, and then not only that, nobody played it.
Yeah, everybody just kind of collected the cards. I almost wonder if it was just an excuse to be able to get the cards out. Like, it was easier to push it out as a game than, like, collectible cards because then it looks like information cards versus a game. Like, you can kind of play it off like, oh, I never intended anything. Like, it's not my fault that everything lined up. Like, it was a card game. Just kind of gives you an out.
That's true. Yeah, you always need that way out. But no, I've been a freelance photo and video producer for over 20 years, and so I know Photoshop, I know video editing, I know all kinds of stuff. And so one day I was frustrated and I was talking to my family about why there isn't more material like these Tuttle Twins books for kids. And so my wife, God bless her heart, says, well, why don't you make it yourself? I'm like, okay, well, challenge accepted. And so I mean, nobody wants to look at my red face. I just, showered, but I don't know if you can make this out, but I need a wider shot. But I made sure to include ultra rare cards that are really shiny. So let me back up a little bit. So this is the actual box of cards, okay? And I wanted to make it fun, like old baseball cards. So there's 36 packs in every box. Kind of
has like a G.I. Joe kind of feel or look to it with the coloration, at least how it looks on the camera. It reminds me of like some like old school G.I. Joe packaging.
Yeah, and it's my Series 2 is about to come out, and Series 2 blows Series 1 out of the water. I mean, I really upped the game, but I wanted to make it fun to open cards. I wanted to make it because the other thing is that I do go out and I show these at card shows, and they're typically sports card shows or Pokemon shows. So I'm always the weirdo there selling like cat food at a dog show, if you get my drift. And everybody is like, what the heck is this? But everybody has fun ripping a pack right there at the table. Everybody has fun. I hit people, they rip a pack and they go, God, you made all this? And I go, yes, I did. And then they start getting boxes. And it's fun for them. And that's what I want. So there are 90 topics per series. And the way I broke it down was I started off making 90 subjects that I felt were compelling, but I felt like if I got a product with only 90 cards, I'd feel ripped off. And so I tripled it. But the way this works is that every card or every subject, like this guy, George Dooley, who was one of the, he actually ran one of the largest airlines in the United States for the U.S. government. You've never heard of him. He was involved in Iran-Contra, and he was involved with a fellow named Barry Seal. But there's 3 different narratives or 3 different cards per subject with a different part of the story on the back. So it's very comprehensive because I can't fit all the information about George Dooley on one card. So every card is labeled with a gold, a silver, and a black border. So it totals out with the rare cards about 279 total cards. And it's that number because that will fit evenly in a card page. Because I always hated that as a boy. I'd get a set of cards and there's like 2 or 3 spots left over,
Oh, dude, I was a big Yu-Gi-Oh card player for a while, and I used to go to tournaments and everything. I made it up to actually state finals playing Yu-Gi-Oh, and same thing, dude. I have a bunch of binders. I still have one of my binders out in the back room, and I have a bunch of pages where it's like I was trying to keep everything in sets, but it's like, 3 empty slots on this page. So you do that thing where you kind of make like the X corners, but it still kind of bothers your OCD. So I can totally understand that.
Yeah. But I want to make it a theme. The ultra rare cards are all about why we don't use gold and silver as real money. The central tenet for every subject is that some youngin or even some adult is going to see one of these subjects for the very first time and not have any frame of reference. And so I want to expose them to these foundational concepts that, like, you and I and, your listeners, you'll rip a pack and you'll go through each of these and go, oh, I know about this. I know about this. I know about this.
Which is just as exciting, because then you can collect stuff that you know about. It's interesting both ways, Yeah.
Yeah. And it's taken me to places that I never even, I've learned so much. I mean, it's really filled a lot of holes in my history, because you can't learn everything, but man, it is fun to try. It really is. I am having so much fun learning about subjects that I never even wanted to know about when I was in my teens. Who cares about the topic of communism and public education? So what?
Us now, not as teenagers, but now we do.
Now we care. Who cares about the P2 Masonic Lodge in Italy and how it was running the government during the years of lead? Boring. Well, not anymore. Dude, I'd lay awake at night. I got stacks of books up to my ceiling, and I just scare myself to sleep at night and have the most amazing dreams. Okay? It's like I went down a rabbit hole for Series 2, researching the P2 Masonic Lodge connection with the Years of Lead, which is also known as Operation Gladio.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to the show. Oh, perfect. I was going to say, if you want, we can kind of lay some of these concepts out if you want as we go, because I'm sure people love hearing about conspiracies. So if you want, we can cover some of your favorite as we go. This one being one of them, if you want.
But that's a Series 2, and so it's so deep that I can't devote one single card to P2 or propaganda Dewey, as it's called. So there's like 7 cards in Series 2 that are devoted just to the P2 subject. And I even coded them. It's almost like a mini series in the series. Series 1 kind of jumps around from subjects that I think are foundational, because we have, but there's no UFOs, there's no aliens. This is just stuff that I get out of autobiographies, government research documents, crime files. Because I have a shelf full of books, and I don't use all of them because some of them do have a lot of crap in them. Okay. Like, look.
Do you try to use purposefully, like, not like conspiracies for sure, but like things that you can find stated facts on? So they're conspiratorial topics, but they're not like the out there conspiracies where there's not like solid validity to them. It's just kind of speculation, right?
No, there's no speculation. In fact, I challenge people at the card shows. I'm like, if you find a theory in here, then I'll give you $500. But if I could just find this one topic real quick that everybody's near and dear to their heart. I'm sure you're familiar with Bohemian Grove.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We actually covered that on my other show probably about 6 months ago or so now. So it's been a little bit, but yeah, definitely.
Well, you see, I always thought I knew what was up about Bohemian Grove until I dug a little deeper, and I found out, did you know there's a female version?
I did not. I actually semi-recently heard about the whole like Minotaur concept at the male one, but I did not know that there was a female Bohemian Grove.
Yeah, there's a female Bohemian Grove, and it's called Belizean Grove.
Was that after the whole, like, did you read into the whole thing about there was, like, a time, I think it was back in, like, the 70s, where they were, like, having this debate about allowing females in with, like, everything starting to change and everything, and they let them in to, like, help, but there was actually, like, a separate split off completely from that, other than them just kind of letting them in to help, because I hadn't actually heard that part before.
Yeah, they're slightly related, but it's very low-key. They don't go quite, the grand majesty of, like, a giant stone owl and, all that, but the interesting thing about Belizean Grove is that there is a current member. Oh, shoot. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, great. It looks like my audio dropped out. Sorry. But there is a current member of the United States Supreme Court that was a member of Belizean Grove. Can you name who it is?
Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi.
Supreme Court.
Supreme Court.
Not Congress.
I'm not sure. Throw it at me.
Sotomayor.
Sotomayor.
Yep, she is a member of Belizean Grove. Okay. And something else I always heard about Bohemian Grove was Nixon's favorite statement about it. I'm sure you've heard about Nixon's opinion about Bohemian Grove, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. But I got his autobiography. And let me tell you something about Richard Nixon. He loved Bohemian Grove. He loved it. Okay.
When that whole Minotaur thing came out, the reason why people were able to like identify the main guy that was running around on that particular year was because he had a Nixon tattoo on the middle of his back, weirdly enough. Yeah. I remember that whole part of that conspiracy too.
So in Nixon's autobiography, he brings up Bohemian Grove prominently at least twice. And he talks about, because he had been going there for at least 10, 12 years before he made that statement. And he would hang out with Ronald Reagan before he was president. He'd hang out with Dwight Eisenhower. And there were all sorts of fun camps, just like that is described. But there was one special camp that everybody wanted to join because it was the most popular, and it belonged to Herbert Hoover. Okay. So Nixon's comment was relating to the influx of the, let's just say, alternative crowd in San Francisco that were bringing their nighttime habits with them, if you know what I mean. So that's what his comment was about, not Bohemian Grove exclusively. Okay. But he loved that place.
Got to try to steer everybody's attention away from it. That's always been like the whole concept the whole time. I mean, it seems like people were kind of, they're aware of the idea, but they didn't really know what was really going on until 2000, when Alex Jones actually went in with the camera and was actually able to record stuff. And even so, when he went by with people after that, he'd like bring up the whole Bohemian Grove thing, and they'd be like, "You're disrespectful. I'm done with this conversation," and just walk away and just try to not draw any attention to it as much as possible.
Well, it had been it was already featured in an issue of Spy magazine. And then prior to that, in I guess was the late 60s or early 70s, there was a small book printed about the elite and meeting at Bohemian Grove, and I'm trying to remember the author, but it had been around a little bit. But you had to be, I don't know, you had to be like a fan of Robert Anton Wilson to be into that kind of material. But no, the other thing is that what I really get steamed up about is what children are taught in school. And so it caused a big giant rabbit hole research into this guy. And I talk about this guy all the time. Sometimes people get sick of me talking about him. But on the bottom here, we got a man named George Counts. Okay. This man invented social studies. Okay. Everybody's least favorite class in school. And he is a very evil, sick man. He was an open, flaming communist. And he had traveled to Russia in the late 20s, and he was investigating their public school system. And he was asking one of the teachers there, "So how do you teach your kids about communism?" And the teacher proudly says in reply that, "Well, we don't tell them about communism. We just teach them how the world actually works, and they naturally arrive at communism." I'm like, whoa, okay, hold on a minute. He was very prominent with people like John Dewey in the progressive education movement. And so he published a bunch of pamphlets, and anybody can get them on archive.org. And I highly recommend them because they're short and they're brief. This one right here, "Dare the School Build a New Social Order," is full of bits of communist tid. Okay. And I'm trying to find, and my computer's lagging a little bit, but I don't want to go through this whole thing, but so some of the central tenets should seem very familiar to people. Okay. His basic premise is that he wants teachers to accept a bigger responsibility for educating children. And what that means is to recognize that you got to remember, this is written at the time, maybe just towards the tail end of the Great Depression. And so people are out of work. And he's looking around saying that we have all this industry, we have all this, we've conquered nature, we have all this plenty. So we need to distribute it. We need central planning. We need teachers to tell these students that we can have this if they demand it. And forget what the parents say. Forget what the churches say. Forget your culture where you're brought up.
This sounds weirdly familiar, hauntingly familiar, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. In fact, this guy just goes on and on and on and on. And so he actually, so John Dewey, if you know anything about progressive education, the concept is that it's a child-centered education, but all that means is that they want to teach children through play. Okay. And so the problem when you're teaching children with play is that children like to play. And you can sneak any kind of indoctrination into any sort of game or simulation, and you can really manipulate the minds of children. Well, Counts wanted to go a step further. Okay, what he wanted to do was literally instill some form of agnosticism into children. Okay, and it's he's very sly in what he says, because this requires teachers that are responsible, humane, and actually care about the children. I think actually George Counts would shriek at the state of teachers today, considering what you see on social media. But enough about his writing here. People can download his pamphlets and everything on the internet. I highly recommend reading them. But I just want to zip over here real quick. This is the full text of the Reese Committee. And the Reese Committee was investigating tax-exempt foundations and how they influence public education. Because that's a big no-no. Because you've got these big corporations injecting money into teachers' unions and textbooks that train children to become the workers that they need for their factories and their industry. And George Counts is mentioned quite a bit.
That's where you get the lunchtime bell concept too. You get like you're going to do stuff when this bell rings. You're going to move when this moves. You're going to stand in line when we tell you to stand in line. It's all been intended to prep people for working in the factories. What was the old saying? Smart enough to run the machines, but not smart enough to run the factories, or something along those lines.
You're dadgum right, and that tailors perfectly into some of his cohorts. I don't know if I could, if I can find it, it's a gem. But I continue education well into series 2 as well. But briefly, if I can find it, I'll just do a quick word search. There, George Counts was also wanting to go to an actual class in Soviet Russia. In fact, he had been to Soviet Russia with teachers, students, graduate students, and what they would do is they would get college credit to attend classes in the USSR at the time, and Counts was all for it. And the Reese Committee was investigating this. And what's interesting is that Edward R. Murrow, the actual news reporter, was a champion of this project. That little bit of information haunted him for the rest of his career, and anybody that brought it up, he viciously attacked him in the press. So Edward R. Murrow was also a flaming commie. Oh, there it is. Okay, here it is. Yeah, Moscow University. They printed the actual flyer in the Reese Committee's report. And yeah, Moscow University summer session. And some of these classes are just ungodly. Like, briefly, so here's some of the classes: Justice and the Correctional Policy of the Soviet Union, Organization of Public Health and Socialized Medicine, 30 hours, 2 semester units, Survey of Education in the USSR. Is a full curriculum, and this was like considered, oh man, this is great. You're going to Russia. Hey, all right, graduate with honors, comrade. But children need to know this. Children need to know that the state of their education it's not like it fell apart last week. Okay. It fell apart when our grandparents were in school. Okay.
And it's been just continuously getting worse, on top of the fact that you're kind of dumbing down the population as you go. You're normalizing all these concepts that are just beyond ridiculous. And it's gotten to a point where, like, I had my daughter in public school for a year. She was not doing good in, like, any classes. And they were teaching the whole Common Core math concept, which makes absolutely no sense. I was trying to help her with her math, and they're doing these things in, like, boxes. And it doesn't matter if the answer's right. It just matters on what you set up in the boxes. Like, it made absolutely no sense. Switch her over, now she's learning, like, basic, normal math, like Common Core math. And she's A+ everything. Like, she is one of the best. Like, she is a phenomenal student. And it's all a matter of, again, not teaching them this new weird indoctrination, which again gets into this whole idea of, you don't want people to be that smart. You just want them to be able to problem solve, to figure out things, to be able to run these machines. And on top of that, I mean, you're also teaching these kids to be extremely materialistic, because I'm sure you end up having this argument with a lot of people about, oh, you need to send your kids to public school so they can socialize, they can do this, they can do that. My kids are super duper social. They've never gone to public school. Well, my son's never been to public school. My daughter went for like a year or so, but she, got back out of that. But, it just teaches kids to be materialistic, because most of the time, the things you get bullied for in school are not having expensive clothes, your parents not having things, or you not having the biggest, nicest house. So it's not that it's teaching people how to interact with other people necessarily, because you can do that in other places. It's just teaching kids that if you don't fit in with the way everybody else is, and you're not into these materialistic things like everybody else, then you're going to get left behind and made fun of by the rest of the group. And just as another premise to argument, I do think, as messed up as it sounds, that bullying is a necessity to society to function, because if something is outright, it has to be called out for being outright weird, and you can continue doing that weird thing, but expect that you're going to get some scrutiny for it. But when people are getting bullied over materialistic things like not having enough money, like that's not helping what bullying's supposed to do, like in the natural order of things that you even see within other animals.
Totally. And it's worse because that actually festers into adulthood. That idea of it, bullying might be too harsh a word, but when you're an adult, especially in one of those family gatherings, you start to tolerate deviance. If you're a father or a mother and your daughter brings home somebody who's kind of a scumbag and you don't want to make a scene, you just want to be polite. Well, what are the consequences of that? You're tolerating something deviant. And I've had examples of it in my own family. And am I the only one that's going to say something? Am I the only one that's going to say, hey, look, person that I've known, for 30 years, why don't you trust me? This person you're with is a piece of trash. Okay. I can tell. I just know it. I know you. Okay. Sorry. There are stereotypes. I get that. We all do that when we go outside. It's as simple as whether you wear a t-shirt or a collar going shopping. People just assume certain things about you when you walk out the door.
You do that naturally, though. And that's even another thing you see in nature. I know as much as people hate it, like, the whole mentality of human is that you judge in order to survive. That's exactly what everything does. It's the same idea that, like, if you have chickens, and I'm sure, you live in Texas, you've probably seen people with chickens if you don't have some yourself. When you have a group of chickens with different colors, the colors will congregate together because there's safety within things that look similar with them. It's not necessarily that they're purposely choosing that they don't want to be next to this colored chicken. It's just that they're staying within a group to remain safe. So that's kind of the same thing that happens. Like, you walk out and you see a group of guys with polo shirts. It's not that you're necessarily judging them. It's just like, all right, I'm not going to fit in comfortably with that group, so maybe I should go to this group. Like, judging is a natural thing that happens because it's just a survival tactic.
Yeah, but watch out for those goose-stepping chickens. They like to congregate too.
Inquiries of Our Reality will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And now back to the show.
But yeah, I'm not out there to like pick on any particular group. I just want some deeper level of conversation with children instead of just flipping, a meme and, going, hey, bro, look at that. And that's what I see, unfortunately, at these card shows. I've noticed that I do all kinds of shows, gun shows, card shows, sports shows. I'll do anything they'll let me get a table at. And it's a lot of fun. And unfortunately, the gun shows are not that receptive. You would think so. You would think that this would be a perfect match. But the common element is that most of the people at these gun shows are like in their 50s and 60s, and they'll come over to the table. And number one, they automatically just know more than me. Yeah, sure. And then they, when I give them my spiel, they say, oh, that young generation, they're gone, they're lost. You can forget about them. And I go, that's the problem, man. What are you doing to help them? Are you just going to let them rot on the vine? Because the enemy's not. The enemy is going to throw everything they can at the young generation while we just watch them decay. And we can't do that.
It's the same idea as how Maoism worked, that you separate the generations, but you continuously try to do that where it's like, not only do the young generation feel separated from the older generation, but the old generation sees the young generation as having no hope, so you're still creating a separation within that. And this is something that's been driving me absolutely crazy lately, is this whole idea that slang's always been around, but it seems like it's getting to a point where we're starting to take like a word that's already existed and being used somewhere else and then just repurposing it somewhere else. Or you're taking a whole sentence phrase and turning it into one word that doesn't make any context or sense to the older generations because to them it means something completely differently. Like I had this whole argument with my daughter the other day. Well, not argument, but discussion with my daughter the other day about her using the slang word. And I was like, no, that's what this means. She's like, no, this is what it means. I'm like, well, my generation says this is what it means. So not only are they trying to separate us ideologically, but they're also, I feel, getting to a point where like the slang and the expressions are just getting so far out there that they're separating everybody completely where we're not even going to be able to like have a conversation. Cause 70s, 90s, cool, groovy, like those are pretty easily interchangeable words, but now we're getting to a point where like the slang is just outright out there, like making somebody feel crazy. People use like gaslight, I don't understand how that connects to that phrasing. Like it doesn't logically make any sense. So it's just this hard separation, especially now with ideology, and now it's getting to that way with the language too, which is why I'm like very particular with my daughter about like, make sure you talk like you know what you're talking about. Like don't use these stupid slang words. Like set yourself apart from your generation and be one of the few that actually talks properly.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I do talk about slang at the tables, and I have a card about that I show children and young teenagers. One of the first early recorded like official uses of state propaganda slang actually came from this man, Alfred Milner. Okay. And Alfred Milner was a British officer who served with Cecil Rhodes during the Boer War in South Africa. And he is responsible for, after the war, he created something called Milner's Kindergarten. And this was a collection of influential writers and military officers that would be used for interviews for the London Times and the press in Britain. And the problem is that they needed to rebrand the idea of Great Britain. And so at the time, Great Britain, it was always known as the British Empire, right? We've all heard that, the British Empire, because of empire building in India and South Africa and the Caribbean. And so they started to change words. They started to use new slang. And so they introduced this new concept. Instead of the British Empire, they were going to call it the Commonwealth. Okay?
Because it sounds like it's the people rather than it actually being the state.
We're sharing wealth. It's a positive thing. Okay? Now, somebody that served with the British military around the same time and grew up in this was a man named George Orwell. And George Orwell wrote a special book all about the way language gets changed.
Yep, with Newspeak. Yep.
That's right. And so my son just finished 1984, and we had a big, long conversation about what Newspeak is and how it's kind of prevalent today.
Talk about maps with pedophiles. That's like a prime example. Take away the word pedophile, the punch behind the word pedophile. You can't use groomer, and they're just saying maps. Minor attracted persons. Like, get the fuck out of here. That's a pedophile.
Oh, there's a new twist. There's a new twist on that one. Have you heard the latest? I think Alan Dershowitz just dropped it. Alan Dershowitz was saying that Epstein was not a pedophile because technically pedophiles are attracted to prepubescent people. And since all of his victims were post-pubescent, he's technically not a pedophile.
Dude, I've been listening to a lot of like psychological true crime stuff lately, and I've noticed this separation within even using the word molesting versus pedophile, because they try to separate it like it's either way, you're still doing something sexual to a child, but they try to say one's about power or the other one's about sexual urge. So there's like a hard difference. And I get there's a difference mentally, but at the end of the day, that person's still a pedophile because they're having interactions with a child. Like,
well, plus it's what it does to your mind. I mean, look, I'm a grown man, but if I went to prison and somebody broke my behymen, I would be like traumatized and, out of my mind, and I'm an adult. I mean, what do you think that does to anybody regardless of their age?
They don't even get that much prison time like that. Honestly, I feel like to a certain extent, doing something like that to a child is, I'm not trying to say this is like a hard discussion to have, but in my opinion, I feel like it would almost be worse to do that to a child and have them live the rest of their life than to just outright be a child murderer, because at least it's messed up the child doesn't get to live their life, but at least they don't have to live the rest of their life with that trauma that they're never going to get over. Like, you cannot give enough time to somebody who did something like that to somebody.
Well, that's some esoteric mess I don't want to step in, because I might actually argue the contrary, but I don't want to. All I would say though is that, like, so here's a thought challenge for your child: is ask them what the difference between a choice and a decision is. Okay. And the reason is because everything that is presented to you from central control is presented to you in the form of a choice. We've been brainwashed to believe that, we have freedom of choice. You have the right to choose, and that's a lie. That's a little form of newspeak. A decision gives you way more options, gives you way more agency. Okay. And makes you more a complete human being if you go through your entire life making decisions and not choices. Okay?
Choices sounds like you only have two options. Decision sounds like there's multiple options or conclusions you can come to, and there's creative, abstract opportunities for thought to go into it, where choice seems like this is what you get, pick from one of these.
Exactly. And that's how subtle newspeak or lingo can be. And it's not on the big words. It's on the small words. It's the way we use them. And that's that's the hard part. That's where the real programming gets us. Okay. So yeah, that's been a talking point for the last month about, okay, son, is this a choice or is this a decision? Okay.
I mean, talk about some other pretty hard newspeak. The whole idea, too, that we have words that we try to use to describe violent acts, but you can't say those words because it offends people. Like, it's pretty crazy that we've gotten to a point now where, like, you're listening to a true crime podcast, for example, or you're listening to something about a killer or whatever, and they have to literally censor out the words and not say, they have to say, like, the R word, or they graped them and stuff like that. Like, it's beyond crazy to me that you're trying to portray a very violent, very awful act. So the word is just hard. It sticks. Like it makes the point, but we dance around using that word because that's newspeak again, because you're trying to kind of lighten the blow of it. You're trying to like not draw as much attention to it. Like it's crazy that we've gotten to a point now where we can't even use the language properly because people get offended by the proper use of the language when there's nothing to be offended about when you're using the literal term of a word.
I know I don't know if it's the case up where you live, but I know here the police and they don't use the word prostitute anymore. The word prostitution does not exist in the news reports and the police bulletins. It's all labeled human trafficking.
Really?
Now,
I haven't actually seen that up here yet. I don't know. I haven't checked into police records, but I know that they've tried. Like I follow some of like the scanner pages and stuff like that, and they've kind of used different terminology where they don't necessarily say prostitute, but they say something like tried to adhere funds for sexual acts. Like they kind of dance around using the word prostitute, and they kind of just use more so the term of like they took money for a sexual act instead of putting a hard term on it. Even though again you're like dancing around just being able to make it easy and just use one single word, and now you're turning into a whole sentence for no reason.
Yeah, I don't know what the reason of that is. Maybe they expect like 2 generations from now people will forget the word, and so when they try to pay for it, they slip up and say this lingo and get caught. I don't know. That's when you erase things down the memory hole. It starts with language. It starts with misrepresenting certain facts or details. So that's one of the reasons why I enjoy going to these shows and talking to the teenagers and talking to the parents. There's most of them are there because they want their sports cards, or they want their Pokemon cards. And what stuck out to me is every now and then I'll ask some of these kids, I'll go, okay, so can you tell me, how do you play this game? And 90% of them just look at me and go, well, I don't play it. Like, okay, so what's the deal? They go, well, we just want to get something that's worth money. I'm like, okay. I've had a couple of them, bless their heart, and I don't get mad. I mean, I'm not. Look, we've all been in that stage. I mean, that's cool. I get it. Nostalgia's fun. But one kind little boy, he goes, "Excuse me, sir. How do I know if I got something that's worth something?" And I go, well, that's an interesting question. I guess it's really like what it makes you worth. These cards make you collectible because it gives you something to talk about. It gives you something to learn. Does that make sense? And he goes, well, but I mean money. I go, oh, okay, all right. Well, bring your dad over here and maybe I'll explain it to him. But it's just even that little concept was just alien to him.
That's that materialistic concept that's just been put into everybody's head where they feel like the only reason to do something is for the sake of money. And this is something you see all the time with like podcasters, is that it's like, you know, there are the ones that are out there for money. And then on the other side, there's the ones that are out there for knowledge and they want to be able to grasp knowledge and start to learn things. And I mean, you know, you have to make money in order to get to a point. You have to pay for programs, all that kind of stuff. But, you know, I understand that there's certain levels that you need to maintain, but, you know, people lose that spontaneity of just being able to just enjoy being privileged to know information or to just have a quick reference to information. Like, this is the part where it gets into the weird thing about like physical copies with people. Like, people just don't collect books, and it's just one of the most important things in my opinion, because that's information that can't ever be manipulated or changed. Everything on the internet can be easily manipulated or changed. You're seeing it with movies now on Netflix, that in certain countries, certain scenes aren't in movies and everything. But if you have physical copies of things, that information can't be changed. So that's collectible all on its own, that you now have a piece of valuable information that now can't be changed. And in a weird way, that's almost priceless.
It is. It goes off into so many directions. You brought up a really good point, though, about people that just want to, you know, just get rich as fast as I can. And the problem is that, like, you got to know what your strengths are. You got to know what your weaknesses are. I mean, I guess if there's anything positive I could say to any listener out there is that, look, I don't care what your situation is. Look, I am small potatoes. I have debt up to my brain. I am struggling to figure out everything on my own, just like everybody else is.
I was gonna say, I think everybody's in that boat, man.
Yeah, everybody's in that boat. Okay, it's okay.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to that deep conversation you crave.
The worst thing, the thing that kills me, because I don't get mad at much, but one thing that really makes me just flaming angry is low effort presented as like amazing. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Like there's a group of guys that break down visual effects arts on the internet, and they're called Corridor Crew. Great channel, and they break down visual effects and how it works in a computer. And it's kind of nerdy, but they had one guy who was a music video director, and he was in the chair and he's dressed like, you know, he just walked out of some, you know, New York club with plastic clothes and upside down sunglasses and whatever. And so he's like, I worked so hard on this latest music video and we just got it to deadline. And so he's talking about his job. And what his job is he takes his smartphone and he goes to these little corners of like New York, and he takes video and he moves it around, and then he sends the file to Korea. And then he has a team that does all this computer animation, and then he just gets the file and cuts it into the music video clip, and that's his job. And I was ready to just drown kittens. I was ready to just set fire to, you know, every tree within sight, because it enraged me that this qualifies as effort. I mean, because look, I'm not going to be too harsh on people that want to create and, you know, put their guts into something, because look, I'm not a woman. I mean, last time I checked, but I'm never going to know. I'm never going to know what that experience of a life growing inside of me feels like. I will never know that. But I know this is that more than anything, that act of, you know, creative effort where you just put your guts into it, like it's the only thing that matters, and you lose sleep over it, and you miss Thanksgivings for it, and you just try to get every piece that you want into it. That's the closest I'm ever going to come to some sort of creative act, and I think that's special. I think that's sacred. It's sacred, second only to childhood, and to see it just treated like low effort slop, you know, like that clown that taped a banana to a canvas and sold it for $40,000. You know, it's like, where the hell are we? And I look at art like Beksinski, you know, even that Steven guy who did the artwork for the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark books.
Oh yeah.
Oh dude, you know, I mean, I can appreciate great effort, and you can see it. And Okay, I'm getting off track. The only
No,
thing wanna say-
I like what you've been saying, though, because this is something that I deal with all the time with podcasting that is just like a really, really hard thing is that, dude, I put hours into the show. I spend sleepless nights. I do research for the show. I spend all the time editing it. I run the social media. I do everything by myself, man. And I'll see these shows that'll come out and they'll just use AI slot for their like research for things, and they'll just run through it and people will like blow up over that show. Or I see some of these comedy podcasts, and there's some really good, funny ones out there. But on the flip side, there's just these other guys that just talk about absolutely fucking nothing, just whatever's on the top of their head, not even funny, and people just love it. And it's just this weird thing that it's like I don't want to be jealous of them because they kind of have their own pocket that they filled, but it's just like the amount of effort that you put into your work, and then somebody just does this minimal effort shit and they just blow it up. Like it drives you crazy, man. Like, and like you said, the best analogy I can think of is that like the way you feel about your game is exactly like how I'm sure most podcasters feel about their show. It's like, you know, you have all these times where you think about quitting, but you can't because it's like, it's your baby. That's something that you put too much time, too much love, too much effort into. And yeah, dude, I'm glad, even though it's a little bit off topic, man, like this is something that's kind of been on my mind lately. So I'm glad you brought it up and you put it into that thought so well to try to explain this feeling that, yeah, I can completely relate with that, man.
Well, it's like, you know,
and it's not doing just to the people on the other end either, because it's like the people that are doing hard research for things. They're trying to connect these clues that nobody else has connected before. They're doing this like real work trying to bring that to people, and people's attention is drawn to the stuff that's just continuously giving the same recycled basic information on the topic instead of actually bringing something new into it. But because they have the main talking points, everybody's looking over here, not realizing that there's all these really, really great researchers that just don't get the credit because they're not flashy enough or whatever the hell it is, you know?
Well, you know, credit, I think, I agree with you. I just think that credit is separate from effort. You know, credit is a byproduct. Credit is pretty much, and you might as well just chalk it up to random chance. You know, all you can do is put your best effort out there and then see where the dice land. I mean, if you go into it with any sort of expectation, then I think you're going to pretty much, you know, end up disappointing yourself.
That's what I always say. You can't put you can't say this is where I'm trying to achieve. You kind of just have to say this is my project and where it's going to go. It's going to go, because if you put a cap on it, then if you don't reach it, you're disappointed. And on the flip side, if you go past that, you get to a point where it's kind of just like you don't feel fulfilled because you don't know where your next goal mark is. So it's like if you just say I'm going to let this thing run where it's going to run, it just puts you in a better mindset for things.
You know, there's a couple of because I read all kinds of books, and I read all kinds of books about creativity and that sort of thing. And I heard an interview with a Disney Imagineer years ago, and it always stuck in my head. And it was a great lesson. And it's basically the lesson of the 100th tree. And so, to sum it up real quick, a new Disney Imagineer goes to work, and it's his first day on the job, and his boss gives him an assignment, and he says, "Okay, dude, we're designing trees for a new park in Paris, and I want you to start drawing trees. But do not show me any trees until you've made your 100th tree." And so this guy's like, "Oh man, this sucks." And so he starts making a tree. Okay, yeah, whatever. And so he makes another tree. And so by the time he gets to like the 20th tree, he's like, "Okay, well, what if this was a tree on Mars?" Okay, well, what if there's a tree, you know, underwater? And so he starts getting like 50, 60, and he realizes something. He realizes that he's running out of trees. And he's freaking out because he wants to make more than 100. Now they have different flourishes. Now they have, you know, strange shapes. Now they defy, you know, physics. And so he gets to that 100th tree, and then he looks at his first one, and it is just miles apart when it comes to creativity. And that's that right there, the 100th tree lesson. That's where a lot of people give up. It's like, you know, hey, I want to try this. Hey, I'm kind of good. Oh, wait, this is hard. I suck. This sucks. What do I do? You know, and you can't measure yourself against competition. You can only measure yourself against, you know, yourself, I guess. But more to the point is, unfortunately, you know, I mean, well, I don't know about fortunately. I'm blessed. I'll just say that. But I do a lot of contract work. And when it comes to video and photo production, I don't own that. And so I end up losing all that work, and it just disappears into the void of the internet. Now, the thing is that the internet material is very temporary. It goes across somebody's feed, or they listen to it. It's disposable. And so my only advice to people that want to get into any form of creative space is make something physical, something tangible, okay? Something people can hold. Because if you can present that in front of a person with money in their hand, or reach or influence, then that is going to be miles better than your idea. Okay, everybody's got an idea, but unless you can actually physically produce something, okay, that's what you want to see, the look in their eyes. You wanted to see that effort you put into it. You know, like I never forget, there's a Japanese sculptor, and he makes these sculptures out of trash, and it looks like just nothing until you turn it the right way and you shine a light through it, and on the wall there's like a naked chick riding a motorcycle. You're like, oh my Lord, you know, how did you do that? How did you figure that out? That's brilliant, you know?
Yeah, I've seen those things before, dude. Just the imagination that you'd have to put into actually getting that to function, and the time and effort you'd have to put into to getting every single intricate piece correct. That's like a whole other level of creativity where it's like, you know, if people want to try to make that new break, it's like you have to be willing to push yourself to those limits, because if you're just doing the same rut that everybody else is doing, you know, what's setting you apart? You have to push yourself to your absolute limits, and that's when you're going to create something that's going to stand apart from everybody else's.
I wish I could. I mean, I wish I was that talented. I wish I had that level of foresight and imagination, and just to see it, you know, just washed away with this avalanche of low effort filth, like you're talking about. It frustrates because it dilutes the people out there that really are talented. I mean, they have talent pouring out of their ears, but it's being occluded by, you know, fake likes, fake streams. You know, you see people with like, you know, I don't know, 5,000 subscribers, but they have 10 million downloads, and you're going, okay, wait a minute, something doesn't add up here, you know? Okay.
Dude, it's kind of like doing podcast editing too, or like audio editing, man. There's a lot of guys that'll just throw it through AI, but it doesn't have that personal touch, you know? Like, yes, it's going to be uniform. It's going to sound the same. Everything's going to be normalized, whatever, but it's still going to have just that basic construct every single time. You know, you actually do it yourself. It gives you that opportunity to actually be able to do these little intricate things, to adjust everything perfectly, to do it exactly how you want it, instead of just making it that generic cookie cutter, here it is, throw it out, generic version of yourself.
I love audio editing. I love messing with audio, especially Audition. But, you know, the funny thing is that you and I, the way we're talking about this, people 2 and 3 generations older than us would be saying the same thing. They're like, oh, wait a minute. Wait, you're not doing it naturally on, like, you know,
cutting the film and
cutting the film and organically going out there and using a DAT or a Marantz. You know, it's like, it's funny. I draw the line at AI also. I don't use any AI stuff. Forget that. I mean, it's pointless.
It's a matter of utilizing the tools without becoming completely adapted to the tools, meaning that, like, utilize them for what they are. Like, whatever's available, definitely make sure that you use it, but don't become completely reliant on it. You know, like, AI is one of those things that it's a little bit different than things in the past. You know, like, we're doing essentially the same thing as the people cutting film. The only difference is we're doing it in a digital format, but it still goes down to exactly being that precise. But when you have something that's a thinking model that's doing it completely for yourself, like, it's getting rid of that opportunity for you to actually think about the project itself. So it's like, utilize it for the little bits of tools that you could possibly utilize it for. Like, you know, say you need a weird sound effect or something like that, or you need this, or, you know, utilize it for that, but don't just throw the whole episode in there and just ask it to edit it for yourself, you know? Like, utilize it for the tool that it is, instead of just making it the end-all be-all solution for whatever you're doing.
Yeah, all these tools we have actually are, I mean, they're a lot faster than you think. I mean, it's like, if you have an idea for a sound, you've got a recorder in your pocket at all times. And if you just use your imagination, you can make something in less than 10 minutes and it's yours, you know? Same thing with I have an idea for a card, and I'll set up something in my bathroom, and I'll take the digital photo, and then I'll edit it, and I'll add filters, and I'll throw in a few assets to give it something creepy to look at, fog, whatever. But you make it your own, and it speeds things up. It really doesn't take that much time. So I lost my point earlier. I just wanted to say this, and that is that, look, when you're lost, you're struggling, and we're all struggling. I mean, I'm still struggling. I still don't even know what I'm doing. But what I feel like is that no matter what situation you are in life, you have access to either some friends, some family, that have a garage full of crap they don't use. Okay. They have bedrooms full of trash that they don't know what to do with. Okay. There are cheap books, even how-to videos online. There's some skill that you can multiply and get some level of independence, even if you're working for a boss. Okay, well then try to figure out a way to be independent, be a contractor, okay, on the small scale. But you can multiply those skills based on things around you. And so many people get stuck on thinking what their future endpoint's going to be when they don't realize that nobody knows what that is. Nobody knows what their future endpoint is going to be. So you might as well start with something, okay? But you just can't sit around and think, okay, well, I just need to wait till somebody notices me. No. You have all the material. You have all the time. You just need to manage your time and take advantage of the stuff around you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely.
Okay, yeah.
Inquiries About Reality will return after this quick commercial break. And we are back, so let's hop right in.
And I guess kind of starting to bring stuff backhole a little bit to the card game and everything before we start wrapping stuff up completely. And I feel like we could definitely do another episode, dude, because this has been a fun conversation, even going beyond the conspiracies and stuff. We could definitely probably go for hours just ranting about just conspiracy stuff in general. But to kind of put a little bit end cap on it, I'd like to at least take a few moments to talk about maybe some of your personal favorite cards that you've created in your collection and, why they're your favorite, and maybe fill people in a little bit on the conspiracy involved with them.
Oh, okay. Give me just a second here. Let me find some of the ones that I really enjoy the most are where I get to use like some of my favorite photos that I've staged or taken, because like I mentioned earlier, when you put things in the digital space, it disappears. But when it's a print, when it's actually, in front of your face, it's a physical object. It just feels like an accomplishment. Especially when it's photos that I really like. So I'll switch over to one reel here that I just really like this one. I'll try to blow it up, make it a little bit.
Just to continue on with the whole idea about what you're saying about being able to hold something too, and it just kind of feels totally different. I have this thing I've been doing ever since I started my show where every single episode, every single thing I've ever done, I put on this hard drive. And it's just kind of a weird thing that it's like all my episodes are out on the internet and it just doesn't feel the same as it does to be able to just hold all of my work like within my hand in this box. You know what I mean? Like just having a physical variation just feels totally different. And this is probably the closest you can get to doing a podcast, but it feels good to know that this is disconnected from everything and this is something that nobody could take or alter unless, they had access to it taking it from me.
Right. So I was going around Houston getting photos and footage during the lockdown years, and there's a bridge where bats fly out every night, and so there's this beautiful shot of downtown, and somebody just put a whole bunch of locks right there on the rail, and I thought, man, that's a great shot, and it just kind of naturally, I adapted it for my one of my cards about lockdown lies. There's about 5 or 6 cards devoted to the COVID lockdown lies. But it feels good to get that actually printed and seen in the hands of other people. That stuff makes me feel satisfied, and then
dude, coming from another person that was talking a lot about that stuff too, it was one of those things that at that time, it was either you're falling in or you're one of the crazy outlaws that was talking about how everything was just batshit crazy. And it just weirdly made you feel better. It was like a therapy, even though, there may have only been a couple people listening, just to rant the words out at somebody that, was actually interested in hearing them instead of people that were throwing some backlash. Because of course, those argument conversations can be fun here and there, but it's nice to be able to throw something out there and know that, it's almost like therapy that somebody appreciates your opinion on the topic, just to be able to get it out and be able to rant it out in a way.
Oh, totally. I mean, my wife and I were watching those videos from China where the people are just falling on the street, and we both looked at each other and said, wow, that looks staged. Gee, you just happen to randomly have a video of that as it's happening? Okay, yeah, that's horse manure. But anyways,
from the very first videos, I'm sitting there, dude, there's no way. This isn't real. This is not real. No way.
And then foundational knowledge. If you know anything about Pearl Harbor, you know about the McCollum memo. But this actually is a real battleship here in the harbor near Houston. That's the battleship Texas, and that was a World War II destroyer. And actually, its roots are from World War I. It was actually it was modernized just so it could be put back into service during World War II. It's a pretty famous boat around town, but that's an actual picture I took of it, and I just aged it and put in some fake airplanes just to make it look like it was part of World War II. So, little subtle things like that. I mean, one card I'm really proud of, but not in a necessarily positive way, is this was the first moment in history that really woke me up. And this is all about, I don't know if you can read that. It's about the Mount Carmel door, which concerns the siege at Waco. And when that was going on television, that's when I woke up. That's when I realized that it does not matter who you are or where you are, that there are forces out there that will stop at nothing to make sure you're dead. And so this particular card means a lot to me because that was the kind of my coming out of the shell moment.
Just to throw this one in there out of curiosity, and I'm sure that you have a card for both of these things, but for a lot of millennials such as myself, the main wake-up moments were, number one, 9/11, and then when we started learning in school, it was the whole conspiracies and weirdness around the whole moon landing concept. So did you end up doing a 9/11 card or anything based on the moon landing or anything?
Well, here's the thing. I've got some tertiary subjects related to 9/11, but I'm not doing the problem is that there's a lot of crackpot stuff associated with both of those subjects. And there's nothing that I can actually refer to go into okay, here's an overall view, this is all the information you know in one card. But I can touch certain subjects. So the short answer is no. But the long answer is that there are related subjects. And there are future cards that will deal with things like the fact that, there was a passport that was untouched and it just happened to land in the hands of one of the people involved in releasing the dancing Israelis. That's interesting. Or there might be something about the telemetry data that was lost during the moon landing. But there's not going to be an overall card per se to just completely debunk the moon landing or say that a plane didn't hit the Pentagon when, honestly, the pictures I've seen.
Yeah, let's have a meeting over $1.2 million, and that happens the next day. I mean, you could always do a card about the, let's have a meeting about the $1.29 or $1.9 million, and everybody bring all your information to this, and then
the room's
gone.
Doing that. Yeah, I know. And as far as I'm concerned, there are researchers out there that can argue this point way better than I can, and I'm more interested in the tidbits outside of the main picture. I don't care how the buildings fell. Okay, they fell. That happened. I'm more interested in the why. I'm more interested in who benefited, and I'm more interested in the countries that benefited from us invading Iraq. So I do have cards in here about the anthrax attack and how fake that was that got us into Iraq. I do have some subjects in here about the 93 World Trade Center bombing and how the FBI was largely responsible for the bomb going off. But it's hard to flip and talk. Okay, there we go. I mean, there's a card about the 93 World Trade Center, which is, I think, more indicative of the state of our federal agents. Just wanting to get a bad guy and look good in the news. That to me is more terrifying. But there are cards in Series 2, and so I might as well just spill the beans. So I promised myself that at some point I'm going to devote an entire series just to one subject. And so I told myself, okay, if I can get past Series 3, then Series 4 is going to be all about my favorite subject of all time, and that is the lore behind MK Ultra.
Ooh.
Okay? It was awful. It was terrible. And I think it's still going on to some degree today.
I have a whole entire episode and argument that I've been talking about for months now, trying to continue on by saying basically that I think that a lot of these UFO abductions are just MK Ultra experiments continued on down to facts with people claiming to see these mask lines, the continuation of I had a full timeline of when the MK Ultra stuff supposedly stopped, and then when they started pushing this propaganda for the whole UFO idea, then all of a sudden these people started getting abducted and they had these weird experiences where some would say they looked like people. I've been working on this whole really hard theory that I know a lot of people probably hate, but basically saying that I believe that if not all, most, there's a good number of the UFO phenomenon that is just a continuation of these MK Ultra experiments.
I'll do you one better. I think all the politicians and especially popular comedians, influencers pushing psychedelic drugs. I think that's on purpose. I think that's a continuation of MK Ultra.
I mean, that's what I think the whole Charles Manson thing was too, is just, again, a continuation of MK Ultra to either one, get rid of the whole idea about commune and hippie living because, you can't have people doing that. And then on the other flip side, the whole concept with MK Ultra is they wanted to see what type of mindset they could put people in, what they could get them to do. So, I mean, dude, Charles Manson's like a really, really hard one to look into because there's just so many different ties that go back and forth with that one. But just the whole connection about him wanting to get involved with things, him having different connections, and then him being this one guy that I didn't kill anybody. I got these people to do it. And he used LSD right after all of the MK Ultra stuff. Like, oh man, like, I don't know. Maybe it's an out there conspiracy theory, but, I don't know. I feel like there's way too much validity behind it to not see it that way any other way now.
There's only one name that always pops up when it comes to these celebrities, and that's Jolyon West. Jolyon West was an MK Ultra scientist, and Charles Manson was a patient of his.
Yep, yeah, that's what I was going to say. As I know, he was one of the MK Ultra people they were experimenting on it to begin with.
Yeah, totally. Oh, yeah. In fact, Operation Chaos deals into that too.
Even all the Grateful Dead movement stuff, man. Like the show that never existed that was all connected to all this type of stuff too, man. Like everybody thought the Deadheads were like this whole hippie movement. The whole intention was, dude, they're running MK Ultra experiments while also trying to keep the people that would protest the war traveling around in groups and staying away from everybody.
and they were the only people at the time that had access to LSD.
Mm-hmm. And they always had this crazy strong stuff that nobody could find anywhere else, man. Yeah. Like even the San Francisco wave, man, it was all government funded.
That's right. Yeah. Timothy Leary was a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Tune in, drop out. Yeah. It was all, I mean, it's my favorite subject. And so like I have voluminous sub files and folders just ready to go. I mean, I can't wait. And I figure that if I've got enough subjects for 20 series easily. And I can, every third or fourth regular series, I plan on devoting to just one subject, period. And that might be a 9/11 series. That might be a JFK series. I don't know. I don't know. But for now, Series 4 is going to be MK Ultra.
Dude, if you could do MK Ultra too, I mean, you could even get other people into collecting those in the aspect of like, if you involve the Grateful Dead stuff, you involve all these other things, like you involve Charles Manson, stuff like that. You'll have people that are into serial killer collector cards. You have people that are into Grateful Dead, maybe collector cards. Like you might end up getting unintentionally a whole other different interest and market into it just because of them having the conspiracies of some of like their favorite, musicians, for example, Because there's way beyond just the Grateful Dead. I mean, you got Jim Morrison, The Doors. Like, there's so many different people that had CIA connections that it's just undeniable. Like, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Jim Morrison, like, it was like his dad or his uncle or something like that? It was somebody really close to him.
His dad was captain of one of the ships during the Gulf of Tonkin.
Yeah, that's what it was. So it was his dad was the direct connection. Yep.
Yeah, and so like. One of my goals is that like sometimes in my 9 to 5 I do work for local politicians when it's election season because left, right, doesn't matter, they all pay green, and so sometimes it gives me access to folks, and one of my goals is to have one of my cards autographed by somebody that goes to DC a lot. That would be awesome. Okay.
Hey, if you got their permission, you could always just, leave the signature printed on the card for future ones, make like a special edition one that people can get.
Hey, I'm open to ideas. I mean, in doing this, going back to just real quick about that creativity impulse. So every couple of series, I sprinkle in a few Rockefellers, I sprinkle in a few Rothschilds. Some of the lesser known ones, but still did like unbelievable damage. And so the other night I'm working on Lionel Nathan Rothschild, and I couldn't sleep. And so by the time it was like, 3 a.m, I'm like, okay, I got to go to bed. And I'm trying to sleep and I can't. And so I just go back upstairs and I just keep drilling away on this one particular layout. And those kind of moments are precious to me. And I think everybody needs to experience that in their life. And I know it's just a card. It's just it's just my thing. I'm not trying to go, oh, look at me, oh, I'm so awesome. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that when you get into something and you experience that desire, then hey, that's the universe telling you something. That's a sign that, hey, maybe you have actually applied yourself to something you might be good at, instead of dreading it or treating it like work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, completely. Because it's one of
okay.
those things that it's just like, again, even to kind of correlate it with like podcasting and stuff, like, how many podcasters are there in the world? I mean, there's thousands, if not billions of them, but, it may not be relevant to anybody else, but it's relevant to you because it's what you enjoy doing and it's what you feel is your passion at the end of the day, It's one of those things that I'm always telling people that it's like when you find your hobby, it ends up being this thing that you don't, I feel like, really hit it in full stride until you're like, a little bit older than maybe 30 something, that it's like you kind of do this thing where you find all these little particular things that you enjoy. You kind of go down those avenues, kind of making those your hobby. But then you find this thing that messes all of those into one place where you can do all the things you enjoy in one place. So it's like you spend most of your life getting to a point where you figure out all these things you enjoy. Then all of a sudden there's just this sign in front of you one day that's like, you can put all these things you enjoy in one place and it completely makes sense. And it's like I said, that thing may not always be great to everybody, but to you, like that's your goal. That's your end all be all. And it doesn't have to make sense to anybody but you.
But I'm new to all this streaming stuff, and pardon me for sounding like a Luddite, but what we're doing right now is so cool. Just think about it. You're able to just talk to anybody on video and show off all this stuff and just have conversations. I know it may not sound amazing to you, but this just is so neat. I'm amazed at what we're able to do.
This has honestly taken over media as a whole, which is kind of weird because it's like there's a lot of struggling podcasters, but yet podcasting has become like the main news source. But, just like you kind of said, it's like things get diluted with a lot of people doing the same thing sometimes. And yeah, it just kind of gets difficult. But
it's so easy. It's so easy to find people that think like you. And, it's I'm not saying it's a surrogate, circle of friends, but it doesn't bother me that, I can relate to people that I've never met and I may never meet, but we listen to one particular show or we understand a particular way of thinking. And if I never meet them, okay, that's fine. But just knowing that kind of material is around just feels like a blanket. I love it.
Yeah, it makes you not feel like you're the only one in the world who thinks outside the box, because it's one of those things that it's like, when you're in your local small community, a lot of the time it's like you got the one conspiracy black sheep in every family, and it's just like they're, the guy that everybody's like, oh, he's the conspiracy guy, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sure all of us are like that in our own families and stuff, but it's nice when you could finally get with a group of the conspiracy guys and you can start throwing these ideas, these different things that normal people look at you completely sideways for, and these people actually entertain the idea. Like, just to kind of throw in some basic stuff, you talk about just very basic general conspiracies, like even, the whole clat shot thing, and it's like people instantly got their defense barrier up, but you find your group and dude, you can find somebody that'll rant back and forth with you about that for 2 hours, no problem. And it's just one of those things that it's just like, it sucks that you're not able to connect with these people in your everyday life, but it's nice that we have tools like the internet that don't make you feel so alone in the world when you're able to talk about these open-minded topics. And they say that, we all rise together. So it's one of those things that, if we weren't able to all connect, would these topics be as well known as they are currently if it wasn't for all this type of stuff happening? Because COVID definitely put everything into high gear, but these conversations, people actually being willing to sit down and talk to each other over the internet about these deep topics, like this is what's starting to open up the door with things where the government is having trouble hiding things and why independent media is becoming so popular. But a whole different other argument, but that's going to be eventually, well, it already is infiltrated, but as soon as something becomes the main media source, it's not too hard to dangle some money in front of somebody and have them completely sell out.
Mr. Beast,
Hold on tight, guys. This is our last break, so stay tuned. And now back to the show.
But yeah, I just...
Even a lot of the conspiracy guys, man, like you can see them after a while. They're getting to a point where it's like we see these occult symbols. Like we understand their terminology, we understand what they're doing, and it's like you have these like conspiracy podcasters that are like dropping occult symbolism and stuff, and it's like, dude, people are. You're literally portraying it to the community that's supposed to be able to pick these things up, and certain people still don't pick them up, and it's crazy. But I guess that shows how deep the psyop is, man.
but what's refreshing is like Okay, so this weekend I'm going to another card show, and these card shows are a lot of fun because there's like a circle of friends that come to the table, and they'll each get a pack and they'll rip it right there at the table. And if somebody gets one of the ultra rare cards, they make noise. They're like, oh, and that brings in more people, and so then they get packs. And it starts this chain reaction of people ripping packs. And I'm noticing that they're having fun opening my stuff, not because it's like, going to be worth, something on eBay. They're opening it because they recognize some of these subjects. They do. Okay. A lot of these kids listen to podcasts. A lot of these kids are sick and tired of what they had to go through at school during the lockdown. And so I think, from what I see, this fresh generation just now getting out of high school, I'm really optimistic. I really am.
You see the rise of it with a lot more conservative views of things. People are kind of getting back into being into religion and everything again. Everybody's kind of disconnected the generations, but I think that there's definitely, it's got to start somewhere, man. And I feel like this generation, it's that continuous circle, man. They always say that, tough men lead to hard times lead to soft, the continuous cycle. And I think that we've had that cycle happening, that it was millennials, Gen X, we were the harder generations, and then you get to Gen Z and they became the softer generation. And because that generation got so soft, the generation under them is yeah, no, I don't want to be like that. I like the millennials and the Gen Zs better. So they're bringing it back full cycle. It's that Maoism working against itself, man. They don't want to be connected from the previous generations because they realize that, this is what the PSYOP has been the entire time. This is how you erase history. You got to disconnect the generations that are retelling the stories. And then within 2 generations, you can pretend like an event didn't happen. And people are finally starting to pick up on this again, thanks to tools like the internet and people actually being able to connect these dots now, man.
It's fantastic. I haven't been more optimistic about anything in a long time. But you can't let your guard down. You always have to keep talking. You always have to keep, making that original observation. All I can really add to that is that pay attention to what the popular news cycle is and notice how many shows, how many podcasts cover the same subjects, That's frightening. That's deliberate. It kind of speaks to that influence you were talking about with people using signs and symbols. It's well, wait a minute, who's really guiding the conversation here?
And using newspeak words. You definitely see it in the mainstream media that they'll use certain trigger words because they know they make people feel a particular way about a certain topic. So, you even see that within podcasts and stuff too now, man. Some of these bigger up podcasts will purposely use these certain trigger words that make people paranoid about a current event, or, it's all fear porn, man. You make just as much money off of people being scared of what's going to happen next. So they keep coming back to your show,
Okay, well, I'll tell you this. I know you're kind of winding down, but I thought it might be fun where when this show comes out, what we can do is one lucky listener can get the contents of a pack that I open here on the show.
Absolutely.
Does that sound like a winner?
Yep. And just for anybody that's watching on the video stream or watching this on YouTube, the main episode will be dropping on, let me bring the date up here to make sure that I give you guys the exact date. We'll be dropping on 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15. We'll be dropping on 8/15. So as far as people being able to throw in anything for this, it will be going on until somewhere around the 15th. I don't know if you want to do a couple days after, but yeah, just a heads up for everybody.
Okay, so the way this will work here is I'm going to go through the stack of cards, and then you can tell me where to stop, and then I will open that pack. And unfortunately, I can't ship this to anywhere in the world. So sorry, folks in Australia or UK. This is only for American audiences. So why don't you tell me where to stop? And
let's go to the lucky one. I always do the second from the bottom.
Second from the bottom. Okay, we'll go with this one. All right. So in order to win this pack of cards, all you have to do is reach out to me. I'm easy to find on Instagram. You can even go to my website. There's email there. And just so I know it's you, what I need you to do is do a little bit of research, because one of my favorite heavy metal songs from the 80s is called Thunder Steel. And if you can get a hold of me and tell me the name of the band that made Thunder Steel, then I will send the contents of this pack to you. So let's open it up and see what we got.
And just as another thing, too, I will also include all of his links down in the show description so that you guys can find them quick and easy and be able to send in your answers.
Okay, so we have a black border of the Finder's Cult. We have a black border of Felix Frankfurter. We've got a silver East India Company. That's a good one. We've got a silver Porter Goss. We have a gold 15-minute cities. We have a gold gain of function research. And we have a gold Matewan conflict.
Wow, I picked a lucky pack.
There we go.
I told you, second from the bottom, man. That's a lucky one.
So there's a whole wide range of subjects to get you started. And yeah, so I will set that aside and I will label it, and I put all kinds of goodies in the envelope too. So you might even get some extra stuff.
And also to throw it into, I did have somebody asking in the chat who was curious on how many cards they get in a full box if they were to get them, and how much usually a whole box and a pack run. So you might as well throw that one in there too. So if anybody doesn't win or they're interested in getting some additional cards, they know exactly what where to get them at, how much they're going to be, and how much they get in a box.
Okay, so every box has 36 packs, and each pack has 7 cards. So that's 252 cards per box, and they're all random. I made sure that everything was randomly inserted, and I even made sure that the print company was a little extra generous on the ultra rare cards. So those are averaging between about 6 to 8 per box. You will not get a full set in every box. I've tried. I don't even have a full set of my own cards, if you can believe that. and I've gone through 2 boxes, but I do have most of them. I think I only have about 15 holes in my collection. And online, it is free shipping in the United States, and you get a box for $65. And I don't have individual packs for sale, but on my social, especially on Instagram, you can always see where I'm going to be at when it comes to shows and conventions. Unfortunately, just because, look, I'm small potatoes, y'all. Okay, this is, I am. You are looking at the printer, the writer, the designer, the seller. I mean, I am it. Okay. So I'm trying to get out of Texas and do more shows. They are a lot of fun, and it's something I'm looking forward to maybe one day, just going across the country with boxes of cards. Series 2 is days away from shipping. It is already printing. It is pure muscular firepower. That's all, the best way I can describe it. The artwork's better. I even have guest artists contributing. The subjects are spicier. Right now, series 1, we have about maybe 40 boxes left, maybe. Yeah, did you see me in person? Please tell me you saw me. Say hi. I got prototype cards for series 2 that I give to people for free. They're homemade. That's how I started this. I made every single card by hand with cardstock, with photo paper, and used Gorilla Glue and books to press them down. And I sent out sets to people that I really, really aspire to be like. People like James Emma Pilato, people like Richard Grove at Grand Theft World. There's a bunch of people that, I send these to, not because like, oh, hey, look at this. No, it's because I respect what you're doing. And some of the topics you cover, stuck in my head, and I want to make like something to add to it. I'm ranting and I'm rambling, but just, is that enough or what?
No, yeah, you're
Okay.
more than fine, man. I was just enjoying listening to what you were saying, man. I mean, I definitely will have to try to get a pack of these cards myself, because I would love to be able to have a set of these things in the studio, and also be able to show around to some friends and stuff like that too. So I'll make sure that I include the link to your store, link to your social media, all that type of stuff, so that people can also keep tabs on when the next series and when upcoming series are coming out. And also, I'll have to have you back on the show even before the next series comes out, because I can tell that we could probably go a million different directions with these conversations, but it'll definitely have to be a thing, man, that every time you drop a new series, you'll have to make sure that you make it a point to come on the show and be able to talk about it and get into all the new stuff you're getting into with the new series, especially that MK Ultra one, man.
Oh man, yeah, it's going to be a while. But like I said, I'm one guy. I got a 9 to 5. I'm a family man. I love to fish. I like to bowl. I got all kinds of normal. I'm a normal dude. Okay, I'm just that guy who likes to grill and go to the firing range. I'm more blue collar and redneck than you think. All right, and this is just something I've always wanted to do, and it's been so much fun. But part of it is like you gotta be alone in the dark with your thoughts, and you gotta focus, and you gotta devote to it. It doesn't just make itself. And so be patient with me, but series 3, it might be a little bit, but I'm working on it.
Well, I mean, you haven't even gotten a complete set, so I mean, they definitely got some time to keep trying to get that first and second complete set. So you got yourself enough time that you still haven't even gotten the full set yet. So.
Yeah, but yeah, I take suggestions. I mean, I'm open to all kinds of ideas. If I could get them in boxes of breakfast cereal, that would be so awesome. Get a pack in a box of cereal. I mean, how special would that be?
I mean, at this point, man, I'd even start hitting up some local bookstores or even some local card shops, man. You'd be surprised you might end up picking them up, because I feel like a lot of the guys that run the local comic book stores, the card shops, they might even be conspiracy guys, especially the comic book guys, man. Like, they're already into that type of stuff. So maybe even try some local comic book stores and stuff like that, man. You might even let you set a box up next to the register. And actually, I got a really, really good tactic for doing this, actually, from somebody that's an author that used to write, or still writes, the Michigan Chiller and American Chiller books. When he was trying to get his product in stores, he would do this thing where he would basically go up to the store, say, kind of give the spiel on his books or his product, and he would say, here's the deal. I'm going to leave this box here. If you want to try to sell them, you can try to sell them. If not, I'll be back in a week to pick it up. And at the end of the week, I'll leave you a couple for free if you're interested in them, just so that, you guys had some, no harm, no foul. And he said he did that, all along Michigan, dude, and his books blew up in the state, and everybody knows what they are. You just got to get your foot in the door, man. And if you give them, an out where there's no harm, no foul on it, just, let me keep my box on your counter. If they sell, they sell. If they don't, I'll come back in a week and pick them up. And, you might be surprised on what places you end up actually getting these cards into, man.
It's on the list. Believe me, I've thought of that, and I'm planning something that makes it, just gives them an incentive to. Believe me, it's in the works. I'm actually working on an unlimited series for Series 1, because I want the people that got Series 1 make it special. This is the only print run of Series 1. Any future printings are going to be labeled as such. So if that way, I do have something to take to stores, but the store customers, well, they're only going to get the unlimited version. They're not going to get the first printing. Okay, that's special for people that, were on board and meet me at the conventions.
Say, and then if, the cards end up blowing up, and, they might one day, just considering that, people are definitely starting to get into these things, one day those things might be a little bit of worth something for those card collectors that are specifically only into money. But at the end of the day, no matter what, man, you got some information that can never be altered, and that's priceless in my opinion.
Yeah, man, the books keep flowing. I mean, when I go to bookstores, I leave with, all kinds of stuff. Anyways, I'll shut up. I know you got more to do, and look, I appreciate everything. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely, man. No rush whatsoever, man. I'm not rushing you by any means. That being said, also, I know that you've been kind of, mentioning words of wisdom throughout the whole show, kind of sprinkling it throughout, but I always like to kind of wrap up the show with some straight up words of wisdom. So if there's anything you might want to bestow on the listeners today, other than all of the awesome things that you've been saying, what might one particular idea be?
Well, I don't think you should be ashamed of being selfish with your time. There's so many demands on our time. If you just thought about it for a moment, how much of your time is devoted to yourself? It doesn't mean you have to ostracize people, but sometimes it is at the expense of a birthday or a gathering or a vacation. And that's okay. Don't feel guilty about that. Don't feel selfish when somebody is draining you, wants to drain your energy. And you would find more productivity living inside your own head. But make it productive, okay? And what I mean by that is, so when you go to bed tonight, whenever you're listening to this, here's an experiment. Rub your eyes really hard so you get those little like flashes in your eyes, and it looks like funny, weird light clouds. Keep your eyes closed and try to imagine them taking shape, or try to imagine them to be like people or things. And all of a sudden your brain will automatically start creating stories. It's like a little strange esoteric movie that's going on in your own vision. And you will go to sleep a lot faster, and you will have incredible dreams, and you will wake up feeling like you need to accomplish something. I know that sounds really weird.
It's like a creative muse right before bed. It gets like the creative muse working, so that when you wake up, you feel inspired to do something. That's kind of what I'm picking up from it.
Yeah, and it's not just that. What I mean is that if you have a weird tick, or you have a weird thing that gets you in sort of a creative space, then embrace it, but don't share it. Okay, that's yours. So in a nutshell, don't ever feel ashamed or guilty of being selfish with anything creative, but make the best use of it.
Ain't that the truth? Because you're limited on the time at times, but yeah, make the most out of the time that you do have. I can completely understand that. Well, working in the same thing as you, man, that I'm a dad, I work a full-time job, I run the shows and everything. So it's like, you got to be very precise with your time, but you got to be able to make time to be able to do your passions at the end of the day, and you can't feel guilty for it because, one day, the kids move out. If you're somebody that has, kids living in the house, such as you or me, but when they move out, you're going to be lost if you didn't keep that piece of yourself that you're still able to continue on once, you're an empty nester. So people lose track of that sometimes. That don't get me wrong. Your kids are always important. They'll always come first, but you still have to make sure that you don't lose yourself within that process.
Agreed.
And if anybody possibly wanted to contact you, again, pick up the cards, share some ideas for the cards possibly, or even, have you on their show or something for an awesome conversation, where can people, again, find you across the internet, my friend?
Easiest way is plunderworld.com, or you can find me at Plunderworld Cards on Instagram. Those are the easiest ways to reach me. And like I said earlier, I'm a normal guy. There's nothing I can't talk about, and there's nothing that offends me.
Well, man, I really, really enjoyed this conversation. I'm really looking forward to next time, man. And I appreciate you making the time to come on, sharing your cards, and even doing a giveaway with my listeners, man.
You're welcome. All right, well, you have a wonderful night.
If anyone would like to get in touch with me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can do so through email, which is inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or through social media. Instagram and Facebook are the two that I'm most active on. Or you guys can also get a hold of me through the submission form, which is available up at the top of the link tree. And the last way you guys can get a hold of me is through texting or calling the hotline 24/7, whatever is easier for you guys. And that number is 313-364-1551. And all of that information is available on the link tree, which is available again down in that show description. And with that, hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Hope today's show has connected some dots in your own reality, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a good night, everybody.
Reality isn't what it seems. Abductees taking aboard a craft with a tractor beam. Is life a simulation or an astral dream? Aliens travel through black holes in different galaxies. Life is a bizarre odyssey, with a mic talking about philosophy. Well, Bigfoot is stalking campers as a Wendigo walks through the woods of sharpened antlers, using a Ouija board to talk to the dead like a necromancer. There's so many questions and not enough answers. So if you're interested in mysteries and abnormalities, tune in and listen to Inquiries of Our Reality. So if you're interested in mysteries and abnormalities,